All right, thank you all for being here. I don't know if I said this after the game, but I want to thank all the current and former members of the military that were here for Military Appreciation Day. Really appreciate that. Disappointing loss on Saturday. Credit Baylor. Good team. They finished better. We played really poor complementary football. Didn't play very well on special teams. Played poorly on defense. And then did some really good things on offense, but at critical points there in the third quarter during a one-possession game, we didn't make the plays necessary to tie the game up. And I'll kind of recap it quick. I thought the special teams, we didn't punt the ball very well. I think the 23 yards was our average, a change of field position on punt, and that's not getting it done. We gave up an explosive kickoff return because of a kick that had very little hang time. So we've got to punt the ball better. We got to kick off better. I thought our units, as far as speed and physicality on our cover units, were pretty good. We had an explosive return. I thought Preston was really good at kickoff return again. We had an explosive return. He had an explosive punt return. Almost got out, kind of got clipped on his heels. But just not good enough punting or kicking. But I thought we did some nice things in the return game. And Preston Fox had a big day on special teams again. He continues to be a factor for us. Defensively, the positives, we had 3 consecutive drives that we held them without points in the third quarter. And played football the way we're capable of. We've just been very, very inconsistent. The negatives are kind of the same things that have really hampered us all year. We didn't have any takeaways. Our end of possession downs, they were 9 of 13 on third and fourth down combined. That's not good enough. A lot of explosive plays. I thought we were very poor early in the game on the perimeter, not tearing off blocks, missed tackles. The guys that played well, Reed Carrico, he played a lot of snaps, and very, very productive. He'll continue to play more. Sean Martin continues to play at a high level in there. He's doing a nice job. Doesn't always show up in the stat sheet, but he's doing a nice job. Sonny Redwood played well. Those are some guys I thought that stood out. Offensively, the disappointing piece was the third quarter. Missed opportunities. We had really 3 fourth downs in the game that could have changed the trajectory of that game. And a couple third, and we just didn't do a very good job. And so that's the disappointing piece. The positive versus a good defensive unit, we ran the ball effectively. We had a high number of explosive plays. We played really fast. We were able to maintain the ball, 29 first downs. We did a lot of good things, but the third quarter, not being able to take advantage of those 3 drives and put you in a position to win. Offensively, we need to be good enough to go win games like that, and we didn't do that. I thought Wyatt played extremely well. I thought Hudson won against man coverage. Nick Malone continues to play well. I thought Garrett did some, I thought he gave us an opportunity to win the game with his play. Y'all are going to ask about injuries, so I'll hit on those. Garnes and Burks will continue to be out. Traylon Ray obviously will be out for the rest of the year. Jaden Bray had a little bit of a setback, so I was trending toward feeling pretty good about him. He had a little setback today, so I think he's probably doubtful. But that's kind of the injury update. Anybody else y'all can ask here in a minute. And then turning the page over to UCF. And, a lot of respect for Coach Malzahn. I know him well from being in close proximity when I was at Troy and he was at Auburn. His teams always finish well. They play their best football in the month of November. If you look at his record as a head coach and what they've done at UCF in the month of November, it's impressive. They're coming off 2 really good games. A big win, a convincing win versus Arizona at home, and then a really close loss to a really good Arizona State team on the road in a game that they had opportunities to win. Just give you kind of a brief. It starts with Coach Malzahn. It starts with offense, and he wants to run the football, and they're one of the top rushing offenses in the country. It starts with their running back, Harvey. I think he's one of the most improved players. He was really good last year. I think he's elite this year. Really a tough tackle, can make people miss, has a great feel for their zone schemes that they're running. Their O-line has continued to make improvements. They're doing a nice job in both protection and in the run game. They've got skill at wideout. They've played a bunch of different quarterbacks, but they've gotten pretty good play from all of them. I'm not sure who we'll see. They're playing 2 younger kids right now and playing playing them both a little bit. But the Risk kid has started the last 2 games. I think he's performed pretty well, and so I'd be surprised if we didn't see him. Defensively, 4 down. They made a coordinator switch 2 games ago, and since then they've played really sound football. 4 down front that that's really aggressive. If you look at their negative plays, tackles for loss, sacks, they're up in the higher points in our league. And like I said, back-to-back really productive games. The Arizona game, they got after them, and I thought they played well at Arizona State. And Arizona State's done some nice things offensively this year. Special teams, they've got Harvey back at kickoff return. He's a threat, and so we've got to be really good on our kickoff coverage. They're putting a lot of pressure on your punter. They're really coming after you. And their coverage unit, they're a fast team. They're a team built on speed, and so their coverage units are really good. So we'll have our hands full. Thing for us is just playing. We need to play full 3-phase game. We've been inconsistent. That's why we're 5-5, and that's what we're hunting. Senior day, all that kind of stuff. What really matters is us playing the best football we can play and playing all 3 phases at once. So with that, Greg.
So go into a little bit more on senior day, just the emotions of it from a coaching side, and then players. Can you get a little too emotional as a player, and how do you handle it as a coach?
It's one of the things I think in athletics we have all wrong. I'd be a proponent of doing all your senior stuff at the beginning of the year. Then there's a couple of reasons for that. The number one most important reason that I would do it at the beginning is because everybody's healthy. So everybody should have an opportunity to play there in one of your early home games. Either your first or second home game of the year. Second thing is there's still a lot in front of you when you're doing that, so it wouldn't be quite as emotional. I think senior day is, and we try to train our guys. We'll start training our guys tomorrow. I think it's a really tough deal. You think of all the things that are different about senior day compared to a normal game. First of all, you get your name called. We don't do necessarily starting lineups like in basketball where you run through a tunnel or whatever it is, but you get your name called. It's the only time in your career your family's waiting for you, and so that's emotional, and it could be emotional if they don't have some family for travel precautions or whatever. That can be an emotional piece too. And then, there's a little bit of flashback anytime you're having that, because it happens fast. I say this a lot, man. The days are long, but the years are fast. And so it is. It's an emotional time, and I think you have to train yourself to be to really think about it as you go through the week. That's something that I try to do with our guys. But it is what it is. We'll have several guys that are going to walk. I wouldn't read too much into if somebody walks that has eligibility left. I don't filter that. If they want to walk for senior day, they're going to walk for senior day. So I'm not trying to talk anybody in or out of it. But yeah, it's an emotional time. It's tough. We'll have some really good guys that. From a coaching perspective, I try to flush it. To me, as a player and a coach, when it hits you is your last game. As a player, I don't necessarily remember my senior day at UMass other than it snowed. That's the only reason I remember. But I vividly remember the last games I ever played. In all the sports I played, I vividly remember that. And as a coach, like when you get to the end of the year and you have a chance to catch your breath, that usually happens in February. When you have a chance to catch your breath, that's when it hits you that these guys that you've had for 5-6 years, that they're not going to be with you when you come back, and you start your winter and your spring program. That's when it hits you. This will be a short press conference, guys.
As defense continues to struggle, I know you guys have been working on it all year.
Yeah.
Is it still the same issues from the time that you've acknowledged struggling and tried to fix it, or anything new popped up, and what's left to work on?
I think that I'd be wasting air if I got it up here and tried to say it wasn't a deficiency. It's been a deficiency all year, right? And so what you have to do is you have to continue to work on it, and the frustrating thing as a coach, and I'm sure the frustrating part for fans too is the inconsistency of it. There's times when we match routes and do those type of things and cover and man coverage, zone coverage, execute it, and then there's times that we don't. Like we had a seam ball that was completed the other day to the Baldwin kid at Baylor, and we're in cover 3. That's almost impossible. Like the ball, but there's some issues. We didn't collision him. He should be collision in cover 3. We should play in between the 1 and 2 receiver at corner, and then our safety should get more depth. And so, and sometimes when you're playing defense, like it's almost like putting a puzzle together. If you got all the pieces and you're missing, let's say, you got one of these box puzzles that Dax does. You put all pieces together and all of a sudden you're missing 2, well, it doesn't look exactly right. Maybe a critical piece, right? Well, that's kind of the way when you're playing defense. If you don't have 11 pieces doing their job and that offense finds the one piece that doesn't, then it's an explosive play. And that's happened too many times for us this year. And that's what had happened. Like on the zone play, they had a zone play, all right? Well, our edge of our defense was a gap wider than he should have been. And so he should have been tight, compressing the tight end that motioned in the backfield. Our linebacker was a gap too wide. Boom, that's out the gate. And now you're putting it on a safety that's coming at a bad angle, and that's a missed tackle, and that's really hard versus a good player. And so all 11 have to work in concert together. And when it doesn't, that's things like that happen against Baylor, against good teams. You can get away with it against teams that maybe aren't as good, but when it and that's an issue. Pass coverage has been an issue for us, and we've got 2 games, and we need to be better this week. And hopefully we will.
Oh, go ahead.
How do you kind of coach past the frustrations of the players too? Because they're working their butts off to try and get it.
It's frustration at all levels for me.
Yeah.
No doubt. And so
how do you kind of keep them from kind of having the weight all on their shoulders?
Yeah, it's really not. You know what I mean? Like obviously if we have continuous issues, it's on me as the head coach. We had a team meeting this morning, and we talk about Own It Monday, and I take the most ownership of anybody because it at the end of the day, it's all my fault. These guys, I really believe that they want to follow however we're going to lead them, and if they're making mistakes, then that's a reflection on us, and we're not doing a good enough job. And so trust me, it's always inward for me, and then our staff, and then down to our players. That's a 3-pronged process, right? And I think they're frustrated too. They're frustrated too that we're not performing consistently. And all you can do is you go back to work. It doesn't do any good to sit here and it's like I tell them we have our meeting, we come back after we do corrections, and we start this week it's UCF, and when you start the next opponent, man, it doesn't do any good to reflect. It's about pushing forward, and that's what we got to do. We got to go to playing together. We got to put a plan together that's simple that we can execute, and then go try to do it against a really good offensive football team. What are you going to ask, Mike?
TJ mentioned that he thinks one of the issues is still communication. Mm-hmm. And
TJ who? D lineman?
Jackson.
TJ Jackson.
Jackson. He thinks communication is still an issue. And he wasn't exactly sure why it's not translating from practice to the game because he thinks they're communicating and everything's fine during practice. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I would say my first thought would be I'm not sure TJ knows what the communication is in the secondary. Maybe he does. If he does, he's a really good player. Yeah, he's a really good player. If he does, he's got a really good conceptual. Now he is a smart player. I'm being kind of smart, but he is a smart player. But I think that our box communication has been pretty solid all year. We've had very few communication errors as far as that's concerned. We had some issues getting plays in where we weren't lined up on some tempo stuff. But as far as any change in fronts, we haven't really had many of those. I think the coach to player really helps. Our Mike linebackers have been wearing that. And so there's really not a whole lot of between the front. The biggest communication piece is when the picture moves is making sure that we're all on the same page. And I think that's a struggle for every college football team because there's so many emotions and shifts attached to everything now. It's no different than you can probably ask Dave. Like we caught them at a bunch of where they had some communication errors too. That's some of the seam balls that we hit was probably because of that. And so I think that's a little bit of an issue across the board because the picture changes and it changes really fast, and you got to all be in the same page. Now, what can't happen is it be explosive. That's where we're different. We're giving up touchdowns. Like that shouldn't be the case. That shouldn't be the case. But it is a difficult thing. I think it sounds easy. If you're in a 2x2 formation, it's pretty easy. If you're in a 3x1 formation, it's pretty easy. All of a sudden, they start motioning the shift, and then getting your communication. That's when you got to be really on the same page. And I think when we've had issues, it's been because of those things.
Fill in for Traylon being out. Jaden's not going to be available.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
I think similar to the way we did when Hudson was out.
Mm-hmm.
We take a team approach. So we're going to miss him. I think by the time Traylon's career's done here, he's going to be a really high-level player, and I really think the NFL's in his future. And he's got to get stronger, and this is a minor setback. He'll make a full recovery that's the good news. It looked bad, but he's going to make a full recovery, and he's in good spirits. So we'll miss him. So it's not one of these things where we're not going to miss him. We'll miss him. But we also got some guys that can plug and play. And, Preston will take a bigger role. Jarrell Williams will come and play a little bit more on offense. Justin Robinson needs to play more like he did against Cincinnati, not like he did against Baylor. And I believe he will. And so it'll be a committee approach.
Wouldn't mind
Farmer in the slot, yeah, he played some. Like him and Ride will continue to rotate in there like he did. He played he played more snaps in the game. He played in the second series the other night.
I guess you wouldn't mind some snow on Saturday.
Well, either way is fine. To me, I don't really care as long as we win. It can be freezing, it can be 105. Like if we just play, I'm solely out of tune with the weather. Like somebody's telling me it's gonna be 70 tomorrow and snow, maybe freezing on Saturday. I really don't care. Like my chief concern is, can we play offense, defense, special teams well at the same time? That's what I'm concerned about.
After the game, you said something. I just want to follow up on that.
Yep.
The losing record at home has something to do with who you're playing.
No, we just play good teams.
Yeah, I don't know if you wanted to continue on that because it kind of sounds like you just couldn't get to that level. Like the schedule was too difficult.
No, Mike, I think you're reading way too much into that. Like every time after a game, I come in here and I tell you all exactly how I feel, and I think you're doing a disservice to your opponent if you don't give them credit. And so do I feel like we could have beat Iowa State at home? Yes. Do I feel like we should have won a game against Baylor? Yes. You know what I mean? Now, we were decimated in the second half versus Kansas State. That doesn't condone us playing poorly, but we really we didn't play well in the second half of Kansas State, but we also had more injuries probably than I've ever had in my career in one game. And so I think anytime you get beat, you're doing a disservice to your opponent if you just say you played bad. Baylor, like on offense the other day, they had a really good plan. I thought their offensive line blocked us better than I thought they would. I thought their running backs ran through tackles, and they got fast dudes. Like 34 is a tough tackle. Now we made it kind of easy, but he's a tough tackle, and so I wouldn't read into that. Meaning that what I said is to give credit to the opponent, and it's not just us playing bad all the time.
The way the schedule's set up for this year with Penn State at home, the back-to-back home in, I guess, last month, Kansas State and Iowa State. That's the frustration, I would guess, with how these things haven't turned out necessarily for you, is that you kind of had
it was set.
Fortuitous.
I think that's fair. It was fair. Like obviously the Penn State was a big game, and we didn't play very well. We had two big night games. The Coal Rush game, I think I said this at the time, man, the whole thing was set. We had a great atmosphere, and we just didn't deliver. And it was there in the fourth quarter, we didn't deliver. I'm not out of touch with that. And so, yeah, it's disappointing. It's like we played some good football on the road. We beat a pretty good Kansas team here at home at the end. But we should play better at home than what we've played. And I think that criticism's fair.
How difficult is it you have a goal to get to the championship game from August, through now, and then all of a sudden I have to change to what really is a secondary goal and make it meaningful?
Yeah, well, this is the first week we've had where we haven't been mathematically alive, really, and so what I say to that, and this is the way that I approach it with our players. Like all that other stuff is external. The internal motivation should be just to prepare and play your best, regardless, man. Like you can't take this stuff for granted. Like look at Traylon. Like one play, like I thought he was gonna catch a go ball for a touchdown. Next thing you know, he's in surgery in the morning. So like I think you're not doing the game justice if you don't like take advantage of your opportunities. So my message to our players is not necessarily on 6 wins or senior day or any of those things. It's just, man, you should prepare your best today, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Give yourself an opportunity to play your best on Saturday, and then you should give everything you got every single play on Saturday. And if we do that, then we'll put ourselves in a position to win late in the game.
You mentioned a lot about injuries and different things that you hadn't experienced prior. In
No,
your,
just
in your
one half.
career?
That's just one half. Don't read too much into that either, Mike.
Not really.
One half of the Kansas State game.
Just in general, but where I was going to go is off of what Mike was even asking with the schedule being set up and this being a veteran group. Do you have any sense of kind of where this season ranks in terms of disappointment for you career-wise? Because the expectations were higher.
You'd have to ask me. You'd have to ask me in a reflective mode, and I'm not in a reflective mode. I'm kind of in a disgruntled mode of how we played on Saturday, and in a mode of getting our guys to play to our capabilities, all three phases at one time. Now, when I get in a reflective mode, like in December, I'll give you a quality answer. I owe you one, okay? But I don't have one right now.
I know you formulate the keys to victory during the week, but what are some of the things that stand out on you need to do Saturday?
Well, I think for us defensively, first of all, I think there's two things that are big. Number one is we've got to contain their run game. And I use the word contain because they're going to run the football. I don't know if you can stop it, just because the volume of runs they're going to have. But you have to be able to contain it and prevent explosive runs. And then we've got to do they're going to get the ball on the perimeter, RPO, screens, et cetera. And we've got to meet their physicality. We've got to be able to tear off blocks, and we've got to be able to tackle their skilled guys in space. So I think that's the key for us defensively. Flip it over to offense. The number one thing is we have to establish the run game. And when we do that, then when we're able to establish the run game, then we've proven that we're pretty effective on offense. But we have to establish that. And then we've got to get some easy completions as far as like moving Garrett or screens or whatever. We got to create some completions for him, and then we've got to get the ball down the field. That's where we've got to improve. We hit some explosives the night, but there was more to be had that we didn't take advantage of. Either we didn't win or we didn't complete them. And then on special teams is our protection units have got to be on point. Like they're really good at field goal block. They're really good at coming after the punter, our protection units. And then we've got to do a nice job, continue to do a nice job in our coverage units, and our specialists will bounce back. Those guys they've played well this year. They'll bounce back and do a good job on Saturday.
TJ Jackson compared R.J. Harvey to Devin Neal earlier this year. Is that bigger and stronger? Would you say that's a fair comparison?
Yeah.
You've seen anyone like him yet?
Yeah, I think both of them are elite. You start thinking about the running backs we played over the last 2 years, it's pretty impressive. If you just go back, and I was thinking about that last night. I was watching R.J. Harvey because a lot of respect for him. From a size perspective, he's a little bit heavier, but Devin Neal put on some weight too this year. TJ didn't play against him the year before, but he's put on some good weight too. But his ability to go from like a jump cut to full speed is very similar. And the thing that sticks out to me is he breaks tackles. And he breaks tackles. He does a really good job on the inside zone play of getting the safeties and everybody to kind of bottle up, and then he jumps cuts it outside and outruns them. And so that's going to be the key. The key is to contain him and not let him get on the perimeter for explosives.
The last 2 games, maybe the tackling needed to be better. It sounds like that'll again be.
Yeah. And we didn't tackle as good as we needed to at Cincinnati, and then we tackled really poorly in the first half against Baylor. I mean, it was bad. And so if we're going to have the ability to contain their run game, then we're going to have to tackle at a much higher level.
The way you opened the game, all the motion, the formation, the shifts, just what did that accomplish for you as far as like trying to see what you wanted out of Aranda and maybe planting seeds?
Yeah, we're just trying to create communication. So we had a couple goals going into the game. Is we wanted to play with tempo, which we did, and we wanted to push the pace versus those guys. And then we wanted to make them have to communicate the second and third levels, and do that, and doing some gap exchange stuff in the run game. And we were a little bit different than we had been. I knew they had 2 weeks. Got a ton of respect for him, so he had 2 weeks to prepare for us. And so I thought we kept them on their heels. He found a couple answers in the third quarter. Wish we would have executed it a little better because there's a couple plays I'd like to have back, but there's also a couple that we could have executed better that would have continued drives that would have led to scores.
2 games left, a couple of freshmen that maybe can get some time, still keep the red shirt. Raymond, now that you need, has some.
Yeah, he's got a chance. Like, we used him a bunch in Monday Night Football today. Like, I think he'll be up this week on special teams. Yeah, he's getting better at receiver too. He can run. Yeah, so he'll be, like I said, we threw him the ball a bunch of Monday Night Football today to give him some opportunity to show what he can do. Everybody else, for the most part, Jason Cross might help us a little bit on punt block, but everybody else, for the most part, Greg, that's. Nah, Byerson is. We're getting ready to. He's going to have a little surgery, a little surgical procedure. Nothing big, but we're going to do that now so he can get back for winter.
Obviously, it wasn't the goal entering this season. You want to win a Big 12 title, but what is getting to a bowl game in general mean to you? How important is that to you?
Yeah, I think it's just about playing well, man. Like, the goal is to win, and this win will get us to 6, it'll get us to 5 in the league. But to me, and I keep coming back to this, and I don't mean to sound like a broken record. To me, it's about playing well, special teams, offense, and defense at the same time. And we haven't done that enough consistently. We've been an inconsistent football team. That's why we're 5-5, because we've been inconsistent. And so to me is, how do we finish out this month playing at our best in those 3 phases together? All right, and if we can do that, then we'll be a really good football team. I'll have a chance to win versus Central Florida. We'll have a chance to win the following week. But we've got to do that. Yeah, you're good. Finish up.
Garrett, I don't know the play calls, but it looked like some RPO stuff in there too. Just what do you think is evaluations for hits and misses there?
So I think with Garrett, he gave us the best way I can say this is he gave us an opportunity to win, and he ran the ball. I don't know. I don't have the number of explosive plays he had, but there were several. And he threw some big time balls in the seams, but there also were some critical plays he didn't make. And so we've got to, and he's an older player, but some of who he is who he is. But there's a couple critical plays in that game that if he makes, man, his stats are even better. But I thought he gave us a chance. He gave us a chance with his feet. He gave us a chance with the explosive plays. But there's a few critical plays that he'd like to have back that I'd like to have back.
Throws or
Yeah, so just like we had like really a couple progression things. He got his feet out of whack. Like a couple of the throws that he missed, that underneath throws that he missed that were inconsistent. You know, like that you look and said, oh, he's got to make that one. A lot of times it's due to his feet. Yeah, 2 of those were on 3rd downs.
Okay, thanks, Coach.
Yep, thank you.